Okay, looks like we got everyone here ready to go ahead and start. Welcome, everyone. We've got a full agenda tonight, so we'll go through as efficiently as possible. First off, we have actions taken in closed session. Trustee Wright.
There were two actions taken. On a 7-0 vote, the board took action in closed session to approve the settlement of Sybil Rowe versus South Orange County Community College District, an unlawful discrimination claim, allegedly retaliation and discrimination and harassment based on age, sex, and national origin. The district agreed to pay the sum of $17,500 in exchange for dismissal of plaintiff's claim with prejudice and a release and waiver of all known and unknown claims. Action number 2, on a 7-0 vote, the board took action in closed session to approve the settlement of Omar Yunus versus South Orange County Community College District, an unlawful discrimination claim alleging discrimination and harassment based on age and national origin. The district agreed to pay the sum of $20,000 in exchange for dismissal of plaintiff's claim with prejudice and a release and waiver of all known and unknown claims.
So thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and have the invocation led by Trustee Milchker and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by myself.
First of all, I thank you. I'd like to give my heartfelt thanks. For providing our students and myself an incredible month of explorations, new beginnings of academic journeys, and discovery. I experienced firsthand how caring, conscientious our professors, administrators, and staff are, and I thank you for that. Our two colleges have an incredible and unique culture of compassion, concern, and excellence. This brings joy to the heart of trustees and students. We give thanks for fostering this culture. We give thanks for the blessings of life, liberty, and lifelong learning. We give thanks for the blessings of providing us this marvelous opportunity for us to serve. We ask for your assistance in continuing this magnificent culture for the benefit of all current and future students and for all of us. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our national symbol. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, do I have any requests for public comments? Seeing none. We have oral reports, board reports. I will start down here with Trustee Lang.
Yes, since the last board meeting.
Mike.
Since the last board meeting, I attended several different events, along with all of my other colleagues. On July 16th, we had a special study session at ATEP and a tour of those facilities. Although gaining traction seems to have been enormously glacial to this point, I'm cautiously optimistic about our current momentum and especially appreciate Vice Chancellor Anne-Marie Gable's leadership in this effort. I also attended the Chancellor's opening session, happily again with all of the other trustees. I congratulate the Chancellor on both the tenor and content of her presentation and remarks. I also appreciated the recognition of the milestones achieved by the various employees and recognition for their dedicated service to this district. That's my report. Thank you.
Trustee Jay.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you all had a fantastic summer. It doesn't seem like the summer was long enough. Because of the length of this board meeting, I'm going to make my board report short. Since the last board meeting on July 15th, I attended the board study session at ATEP on Tuesday, July 16th. I attended the Chancellor's opening session and the South Orange County Community College District Faculty Association meeting and luncheon. On Tuesday, I attended the IVC President's welcome opening session, Building Bridges for Our Students, and then the President's IVC's luncheon. And later that day, I came to Saddleback and I attended the part-time faculty dinner and presentation, Diversity, Cultures, Inclusive Practices. Wednesday at Saddleback, I attended a lecture on the Immigration, Assembly Bill 540, and DACA, Student Challenges and How We Can Help. It was a very interesting lecture. I also attended a student panel, Impacts from Our Student Success Efforts, the same day. On Thursday at IVC, I attended the Academic Senate General Assembly opening session presented by June McLaughlin, President of the Academic Senate. Was very interesting. And then the Earthquake Preparedness and Education Forum. I want to say congratulations to Eliska Oransky, Executive Director of the IVC Foundation. Alyssa has been elected to serve a 3-year term on the Network of California Community College Foundations Board of Directors. And just want to congratulate Alyssa again. That's it.
Thank you. I will probably pass some of the things that other people are going to talk about, so I'll just try and focus on the things that I was able to attend differently. So first off, I was invited and was happy to attend IVC's Laser Day. Timing of it worked to where, because I had a late start that morning, I was able to only miss 2 classes, and it was the second day of school, so my students were shocked. But the attendance there was phenomenal. The grandstands were full. It was really nice. The guest speaker was very powerful, really reached to the students directly, and it was a nice event. So thank you for that invite. The other thing I attended was the Orange County School Board Association. I'm on that board. Thanks for electing me to that. And the idea that there's $250 million sitting in an account at the Orange County Supervisors for mental health. And the judge has ordered that they spend that money. And so the decision was made at our board, the Orange County School Board Association board, that they're putting together a resolution packet for school districts to consider passing to collectively try and get some of that money to help fund mental health issues in the districts. And because of my representation on that board, I was able to say, don't forget the community colleges. So they're going to include us in that if we choose to do it. When I get the packet, I will share it with Letitia, and she'll pass it to the board for your consideration. But I wanted to give you the heads up on that. And then, funny enough, I was sitting on the plane coming home from Vegas. Don Wagner was sitting behind me the whole time and said hi when I got off. So we'll see how that goes. And then the Congresswoman Katie Porter event at IVC, the tour of the Veterans Center there was very, very nice. She was very well received. The veterans were really happy to have someone from Congress hear their stories and their plight. And it was nice when she shared with them that her brother was in the service, and so she knew all the correct answers were yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, sorry, ma'am, I'll look into it, ma'am. We'll see what we can do, ma'am. And so she knew that she really wanted to get their input so she could provide support for them. So thank you again. Trustee Jamal.
All right, thank you. I'll also try not to be redundant because I attended many of the same events. On the Chancellor's opening session, I think it's the first time I was able to attend the entirety of it due to work constraints and obligations in other years. So I think that was really helpful and useful for me to do that. And I think the theme of the day, equity, diversity, inclusion, I think it was appropriate. I think I said at the IVC opening session, however hateful speech is, it's likely to be free and legal. And the one thing we do as an institution is to educate people. And education, in my view, is the best way to combat hate, because when you're educated, you're more likely to be civil and less likely to hate. And so I think what we do here is so important on that front. And I did attend the Faculty Association lunch, which was great. Appreciate that. And then we had a strategic planning session and educational master plan review session a couple of weeks ago as a board. I think that went relatively well. I thank the Chancellor for really involving us in the process. I think more than I've ever been involved previously, so I appreciate that very much and look forward to the Saddleback Foundation Gala on September 14th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Wright.
I also attended a number of events. I just wanted to briefly go over just a few of the events that I attended. One was on July the 16th, after our board meeting on July 15th, I attended the ATEP site and special study session that we had. And it was very informative. I certainly enjoyed it. For the week of that we came back, our professional development week, I attended about 14 different events, and I'm not going to go through all 14 events. I'll just hit just a couple of them. I enjoyed the continental breakfast at Saddleback College for the opening session, the Chancellor's opening session. Also that same day, I attended the Geek Report, and it was very well done. In fact, I look forward to that. And finally, same day, on Monday, August the 12th, I attended the Saddleback College Office of Instructional Update for instructional deans and divisions, so learned quite a bit. On Tuesday, August the 13th, I attended IVC for their opening session, and it was a very good opening session. I certainly enjoyed the guest speakers that we had there. Then I drove to Saddleback College, and I attended the One Book, One College Help Us plan for the spring reading of Educated. I'm looking forward to reading that book. It happens to take place in the state of Idaho, where I'm from, so I'm looking forward to that. On Wednesday, August the 14th, I attended the kickoff meeting, Equity Action Inquiry Project at Saddleback College, and then also understanding implicit and unconscious bias in the workplace. On Thursday, August the 15th, I went to IVC, and I also attended the Earthquake Preparedness and Educational Forum, and it was well done. Thank you very much.
Okay. Trustee Milcher.
Yeah, thank you. And cut this in half, so we'll see how it goes. And you may understand my invocation a bit more when you understand what I participated in this month. First, a few weeks ago, I participated in a 13-day biology field study program that was through Saddleback College, that was initiated and put on by biology professors extraordinaire, Bruno Passarelli and Marcia Perez in Costa Rica. And I'm a biology professor, but not here. So I went on this as a student and paid full price and really enjoyed it. I'll tell a little bit about it. All of our students that were to attend this class were required to sign up for 2 biology field studies classes. And the people that went on the program was a community of wonderful, diverse scholars. And this is a commuter college, so these students had an opportunity to participate as a community of scholars living together in a far-off location. Each student was required to keep a biology field notebook, complete worksheet, and submit one brand new species every day that had not been presented before. And you had to present the common name and the scientific name of the species. And it wasn't just work. We also did zip lining in the Monteverde Cloud Forest with 13 zip lining stations way high above the forest canopy, way above the trees. We did whitewater rafting and kayaking down the beautiful river, resplendent with toucans. We even came face to face with Osama bin Laden, the crocodile, who's called Osama bin Laden because you know about him, but you never see him. But we saw him right there, right next to us. Notable in this trip was in Tortuga National Forest on the Caribbean seacoast. We were able to see the green sea turtles, or Tortuga Verde, laying 150 eggs. They dug a depression in the sand. They came up after 35 years of leaving this area, came back in the sand, climbed up in the sand, midnight, dug a place in the sand and laid there 150 eggs. And we weren't allowed to take pictures because it was dark, but I'll have that picture imprinted in my mind forever. I went to so many of the in-service events. Is my time up already? Let me just mention real quickly what I went to in-service. Chancellor Burke opening session was wonderful. The faculty luncheon was delicious. IBC President opening session had inspiring speakers. The Saddleback College part-time faculty dinner, wow. IBC Laser Day with over 800 enthusiastic students learning about Irvine Valley College was incredible. I intended a guided pathways presentation with Professor Rebecca Kaminsky and many other professors talking about the best way to get their students through Irvine Valley College in a really good manner. The honors program at Saddleback College, it was Alana Rosenberg, Margot Lovett, Heidi Ochoa, and Claire Cesario talked about how they are helping honor students. And the students that get into the honors program are not elite students. They're any student that wants to get in, that wants to do original research and wants to work with these professors. Some of the successes they had were 2 of their students transferred to Williams College last year, and they got $75,000 per year scholarship for 2 years to graduate from Williams College. So there were so many incredible successes they made that I was just so proud to be there. And I found that some of the small meetings with the individual professors were even more kind of impressive than the large meetings. So thank you all so much for your hard work and commitment. Thanks.
Trustee Witt.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I can say ditto, 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 ditto. I attended many functions during this past week, but I would like to say just a couple things. I appreciated the cleverness of Chancellor Burke's presentation. I think learning is always important, receiving information is important, but when you're having fun, it's even better. I also like to just share my opinion here. I think it was your first presentation, President Stern, your first opening. It was excellent. I appreciated your words, and I appreciated how concise it was, and it was excellent from the financial end through your guest speaker. I really enjoyed her. I'm just going to add one little thing different. President Pendergast, you said you sat in front of somebody on a plane. Well, I want to say there's somebody in this room who I had a wonderful conversation in Sacramento at the airport with this lovely lady, and we're just, chit-chatting, and we're conversing about our experiences, and only to find out that it's the lovely wife from Corey. And it was right when I was ready to get on my plane, and she goes, I have to take a picture. And I go, no, that's all right. It was fun. You never know who you run into. Anyway, welcome back and enjoy this semester. And remember what I said at the beginning, have fun. I always feel complimented when my students used to say, oh, you're so hard, Dr. Witt. Thank you, but you are having fun. So if you're having fun and learning, that's the most important. Thank you.
Okay. Student Trustee Uriarte.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a new college semester. I have attended a list of numbers of events. Number one, I would like to give thanks to the administrative personnel from the South Orange County Community Colleges for being so gracious and extend the invitation to the multiple events and always sharing their calendar with me. On July 16, I have met with Saddleback College and IBC College ASG president and representatives to try to unite efforts in benefit on both of the colleges that we represent. And July 16, also, I have attended the ATEP site tour, which is a satellite campus for Saddleback College and Irvine Valley College. Also, I attend on August 12 the Chancellor's opening session at the McKinney Theater. And I love the interactive presentations and the Woodstock background music. On August 13, I attended IBC President's opening session, and it was a great opportunity to network with faculty members and share a delicious breakfast. Also, on from August 16 to August 18, I have the honor to attend the Student Trustee Workshop, which it helped me to learn more about the legislative process, advocacy efforts, network with other student trustees from representing community colleges in California, share ideas and initiatives in benefits of the college students that we represent. Thank you very much.
All right. Chancellor's report.
So just a couple of additions to what's in my written report. Last Thursday night, I was honored to attend the Orange County Black Chamber of Commerce banquet with colleagues and students from Irvine Valley and Saddleback College. And thank you to President Rockmore for letting me sit at the IVC table. Together, we celebrated the work of the Black Chamber, was celebrating 35 years in Orange County. As you may know, they are a huge proponent of veterans. And that night, we learned about their partnership with Assembly Member Cotty Petrie Norris to secure $2.9 million in funding for veteran support. We also had the opportunity to celebrate a student from Saddleback College and a Navy veteran, Asia Mann, who received a scholarship from the Chamber. So that's always a pleasure to see. I was also at the visit from Congressmember Katie Porter, and we were thrilled to be able to share the Veterans Service Center with her and all the great work that we do. And when we had an opportunity to meet with her further, I brought up the SALT tax, and she is a big proponent of the SALT tax and bringing it back. She told me she told all of us it was on the top of her list, so we would like to see that come back. And then finally, in terms of current legislation, there are still a number of bills that we are following in state legislation. And in fact, there are 9 of them right now that are on the suspense file, 6 in the House and 3 in the Senate. August 30th is the last day for the fiscal committees to meet and report out on those bills. So we'll be keeping an eye on those 9 to see what happens. Thank you.
All right. College President's reports. Who would like to start? Dr. Rockmore.
Well, thank you very much. I will be short. I just want to thank the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, and all of the trustees for attending that week-long series of events that we've heard about here tonight. It means so much to the college and our students that you're there. Appreciate it very much. And then also to let you know that our first week of classes went very, very well. Traffic was a nightmare, but parking's fine. But everything has opened in a very excellent way. So things are good there. Thanks.
Okay. President Stern.
I'll be similarly brief. I extend my thanks as well to the trustees and the Chancellor for doing your best to attend way too many events during Flex Week, and we appreciate when you are here. I want to add that the mood of Saddleback is very good, and I'm very proud of that. We had a concerted effort as students came back to make sure they felt welcome and supported, and to make sure they knew we were glad they were at Saddleback. And we don't know what the real payoff of that is, but in terms of the data, our year-over-years went from about 0.5% down year-over-year in FTES at the start of the week to 0.5% up as of today. So who knows? It might make a difference, but at the very least, everybody feels good about what they're doing and the mission that we all share together. So thank you.
All right. ASG, who would like to go first?
Okay. Members of the board, public, it's an honor to be here. I'm really excited to share a lot of the great things that our ASG has been doing. We've been doing a lot of participating in the last month. For one, we had our executive and all ASG retreats. Both of those were on campus, and we focused on our goals and got really prepared for the upcoming year. We participated as leaders. Should I move the mic closer?
No, they don't. You
they
can
can't
give
see?
the names.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Saddleback College. I'm Jake Ribzik. Saddleback College, we had a lot of our ASG participate in the Promise Success Day, which was a great thing that we had on our campus. We gave a tour. Each one of us as leaders gave tours of groups, 10 to 15, around the campus. We got to do 2 seminars, one on growth mindset and the other on health and safety. And we were also able to give them a tour of the campus and all the great things that we have. We've also been very active with Welcome Week. So we've been out in the quad and we've been letting students know about all the opportunities that we have. During our all ASG retreat, we actually had a 2.5-hour training on Parley Pro. We had two professional parliamentarians there, Lorenzo Cuesta and Tamara Dunning. We feel very confident now that we have the tools to commit ourselves to all the goals that we have, and that we're going to do it in the most effective and correct way. And that's really important, so that we are having a long-lasting effect and that we are being transparent. And we also, as student trustee mentioned, we had a meeting with her and with the IVC AHG president where we went over our goals, and we have set future meetings up, so we will have monthly communication. And then kind of to wrap everything up, I will bring up OCTA, which I know you guys are curious about. Right now, we're still in the negotiation with them, but there's a lot of great negotiations happening. For one, we're trying to pursue a sustainability grant called LC Top, and that would actually waive the first year of fees for our student. So we could potentially have a year free of this program. We're also looking at different partners that we can get involved, so we're really excited about that. And yep, we're excited to continue all of this great work, not just in fall, but for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. So then we have ASIVC.
Oh my God. If you can't see my name is Faraz Khatib, AHG of IVC president. Just a quick update. So we had our laser day. We had 859 students exactly attend, which was great. That was the most we've ever had. We had great participation from our student government to our students on campus. It was very informative. It was great to meet students, have them interact with faculty. We also had our ASG training where we had Letitia Clark to come and train us on how to properly advocate for our students, which was a great benefit to us, so thank you for that. We have also had our informational booths on campus currently where we're having our student government interact with our students, have them be more like involved on campus and so on. People want to join student government, which is great. Involvement is extremely high. School started, people are excited. Like President Rockmore stated, traffic is a nightmare. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's plenty of parking. You just can't get to it. Don't believe we have any board requests for reports, so we'll go ahead and use this as the transition to prepare for the discussion items. And if our ASGs want to go do their homework, they can. And who's up? We got 4.1 district adopted budget. Looks like is first.
Good evening. All right, so when we presented the tentative budget, the board asked that we go a little bit more in depth, so we have done that tonight. So I'll be kicking off the presentation, but I also have Presidents Stern and Rockmore who will be joining me to go over their information. So just a quick reminder, board philosophy on the budget. We want to make sure that we have wise and prudent uses for our public resources. We are promoting financial strength and stability, and we're maximizing our educational opportunities for the students. The board development guidelines, there are 10 of them. All of them have been met in the adopted budget. Then kind of moving into the numbers a little bit, this is a summary of where we ended the year. So this is our fiscal year 18-19. And it shows our total, all of the funds within the district. So overall, we received revenues of $469 million, expended of $426 million, and we have ending reserves going into the 19-20 fiscal year of $522 million. The majority of the focus tonight will be on the unrestricted general fund, so that's that top line there, which is bolded. This is our operating fund. All the other funds really have guidelines or stipulations, restrictions on how that money can be spent. And so when we're presenting the budget, we really do focus just on the unrestricted general fund since that is our operating balance. So that $77 million that we ended the fiscal year 18-19 with, that is broken into 6 different pots of funding. So 12.6 of that belongs to Saddleback, $5 million of that belongs to IVC, $4 million is district services, $31.6 million is for basic aid, and then $24.3 million is our contingency reserve and other reserves that we have. And to explain a little bit, so that $77 million that I just described there, you see that differs from when we presented the tentative budget to you. So for the tentative budget that we brought in June, we were basically bringing the budget to you and assuming that everything that we had budgeted in 18-19 would be spent. So that budget showed that we would end the year with $55.8 million. We actually ended the year with $77.5 million. So as we were closing the book and throughout the year, we earned an additional $21.6 million. The bulk of that was district-wide. So you can see there, $10.5 million was related to additional revenues that came in for full-time faculty hiring, for part-time office hours, interest income, lottery income, those types of things. And then the other savings that we've listed there, that was savings that were garnered by each of the entities. So Irvine Valley didn't spend all of their budget. They had vacancy savings or other savings within their expenditures of about $2 million. Saddleback had about $4.6 million in additional revenues and savings in their budgets. District services was about $271, and then the basic aid, which basically means our property taxes came in higher than we budgeted by $4.3 million. All right, so now moving into the adopted budget. The revenue assumptions that we made for our 1920 adopted budget include the assumptions that appeared in the state enacted budget that was signed by the governor at the end of June. We implemented the student-centered funding formula within our budget allocation model for the first time for the 1920 fiscal year. And that student-centered funding formula, I'll go into details a little bit later on how that is calculated, but it included a revenue of about 3.26% for COLA. There's no growth funding in the student-centered funding formula, and we are considered a hold harmless district, and so there's $3 million of hold harmless that appears in that. We budgeted a 3.5% increase for property taxes, and our enrollment fees are remaining constant at $46 per unit. For our categorical funds, and this is in the restricted general fund, we budget those at about 95% of what they were last year, and we wait until the state comes and gives us our final allocation, which typically occurs in October. And so you'll see budget amendments throughout the year to get our categoricals up to the full allocation that we receive. We do receive $2.6 million in Education Protection Act revenue. This is as a result of Proposition 30 that was passed to increase the taxes for the K-14 education. We get a piece of that. And then within the budget, we're asking the board, and we have budgeted to spend all of our EPA money on part-time faculty salaries and benefits. Lottery revenue, we have budgeted in the unrestricted general fund $4.2 million, which is about $150 per FTES. We do also receive some restricted lottery, in case you're wondering about that. So in the restricted fund, we've budgeted about $1.5 million, and that comes in at about 52.50 cents per FTES. And our interest income, we have a conservative estimate of $3 million for that. The big chunk of our revenues comes through property taxes, and so with that, our property taxes, we are able to create our basic aid allocations. As you can see here, the basic aid allocations that the board approved back in April total $93.5 million, and they are covering our long-term obligations for our OPEB liability. We have our capital projects that we funded. You know, some of the big ones that we funded there are the IVC Student Center, the Saddleback College Gateway building, our ATEP signage project, as well as the IBC Fine Arts project. And then along with that, we are making an allocation each year for ADA projects, scheduled maintenance projects, and then we have district-wide technology projects as well. Here's kind of a summary of the basic aid allocations. So since its inception, we have allocated $908 million for basic aid. As of June 30 of 19, we have spent $617 million of that allocation, and we have rolling over or remaining in the budget for 1920 of $291 million. So the big chunk of that, $240 million, are our capital construction projects, and then we have about $6.4 million for scheduled maintenance, $30 million for technology, and then the other allocations is $14.3 million. And those other allocations, that's primarily our retiree benefits and then some of the planning things that we have for that. So that just kind of tells you, even we've allocated $93 million, but we have $291 million of projects that are budgeted in the capital outlay fund. So now moving kind of into our DRAC model. So DRAC is our District Resource Allocation Committee, and this is the model that we use for allocating our revenues to the campuses. So the first thing that we do is calculate the revenues. So you see there, SCFF, that's the Student-Centered Funding Formula. The revenue that's generated following the SCFF model is just under $162 million. And then we add in non-resident tuition, so over $11 million for the non-resident tuition. And we have other ongoing funds, such as our lottery, our interest income, full-time faculty funding that comes in is about $13.4 million. And then we have other one-time funds that we include in the model of $4.2 million. And those other one-time funds are our EPA money that I mentioned, mandated costs, and part-time faculty office hours, that type of thing. So the total revenues available that are allocated within the DRAC model is $190.7 million. And then the second step that we do for the DRAC model is we allocate out the beginning balance, and this is the district-wide balance, the contingency reserve, we account for the general expenses, and we account for district services. So the district beginning balance for the general fund on a district-wide basis, this does not include the fund balances for the colleges. So Saddleback, IVC, or district services is not included in this. This is just the district-wide money. Was $22.6 million, so we allocate that out. And then we back out and we create the contingency reserve that's required by our board policy of 7.5%. So that's the $14.3 million. General expenses are the expenses that have been agreed upon within the DRAC committee that are allocated out. That's $4.7 million. And that covers our property and liability insurance, several of our IT maintenance agreements, our legal fees, our audit fees, those types of things that are really a district-wide expense are allocated there. And then we have the district services portion of 9.34%. That gives us the net available funds of $176 million for the district. And then the last piece is we take those balances and then we add in the location ending balances. So these are the ending fund balances for each of the 5, I would say, buckets of funding that we have within the unrestricted general fund. We add in local income, and this is the local income specific really to the colleges. So that includes any rentals, facilities rentals that they have, any sales income that they have, as well as the pension stability money that we allocate in. And so that becomes the total available funds that each of the colleges have for their operating budget. And you can see, if you want to tie that back to the budget book, that appears on page 10 of the budget book for each of those entities. SC is Saddleback College, IVC is Irvine Valley, DS is District Services, You see the general expenses there, and then the reserve, that's the 7.5%. So here I mentioned that we would go through the SCFF calculations. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but you can see that it is a very complicated formula that we are now required to go through with SCFF. The first set of boxes is what we call the base allocation, and that represents about 70% of the total funding, and that funding is derived from our FTES. And for the credit FTES, that's a 3-year average. For the other 3 special admit, those are our concurrently enrolled high school students. We have CDCP, which is our career development college preparation, non-credit FTES, and then non-credit FTES. Those 3 use the final 18-19 FTES numbers. And then the second set of boxes, that's where the supplemental allocation comes in, and that represents 20% of the funding. And here we get funding per each student that is a Pell recipient, for each student that is an AB 540 student, or for each student that is a Promise Grant enrollment fee waiver student. And then the third piece of the SCFF funding is what is called the Student Success Metrics allocation, and this represents 10% of the funding. So you can see there we have 7 different metrics that we're now monitoring and capturing and collecting data on, as well as getting funded for. And so it's the number of degrees and certificates that are awarded, the number of students that complete transfer level math and English in their first year, the number of students that transfer to a 4-year institution, and then those that attain a regional living wage after leaving the college. So that's that first set. And then we get what they call kind of an equity bump for our Pell recipients. So we get funded at about 37% of the rate above, and then we get an equity bump for our California Promise fee waiver recipients, and that's about 25%. And so those are all the counts that we are now going to be monitoring on an annual basis in order to calculate what our SCFF funding is from the state. Here it is kind of in summary form. So once we add all of that information together, we come up with the total computational revenue. And so for us, it's $158.9 million. So, and then you can see it's divided between Saddleback College of $95 million and Irvine Valley of $63 million, which is about a 60-40 split. Previously, under our old methodology, when it was really just based on FTES, that's about a 63-37% split. So you can see with this new model, the funding has shifted somewhat from Saddleback to IVC. Now, with the way SCFF works, is you calculate how much money you would receive using all those metrics, and then you compare it to what you would have received under the old formula, and the old formula is SB 361 plus the COLA. And so the COLA that we received was 3.26% for 1920. So that was added in. And if there's a difference between what you calculated and what you would have received, then they apply the hold harmless. So you see there we did apply a hold harmless of about $3 million. So we're going to receive the higher of the two, and our SCFF is $161.9 million. Now that is higher than what we allocated out in 18-19. So in 18-19 budget, we allocated $160.8 million. So we are receiving about $1.1 million more than what we had in our budget last year. All right. So that's kind of the revenues. Now we'll move into the expenditure assumptions. For our salaries, we included the increases for the negotiated raises that were provided, as well as step and column that are associated with our employees. We have the PERS rate is set at 19.721%. Last year, that was 18.062, so that was an increase of 1.659%. The STRS rate is at 17.1%. It was 16.28, so that's an increase of 0.82%. We have our health and welfare benefit. We had a very good year, so that was only a 2% increase. We were anticipating that that would be much higher. I think we were fortunate that it came in at 2%. Our unemployment insurance remains the same at 0.05%. Our workers' comp decreased slightly. It is set at 1.35%. It was 1.4%, so we had a 0.05% decrease in there. And then our property and liability insurance remains the same at $1 million. Our reserve for economic uncertainties, as you know, this is 7.5% of our unrestricted revenues. So you've seen this number already. That's $14.3 million. So now what do the numbers look like? So overall, for all of our funds, our beginning balance, as we saw, is $522 million. We are budgeting revenues of $563 million. We're budgeting expenditures of $870 million, and then we'll have an ending balance of $215 million. The ending balance for the unrestricted general fund, we're budgeting that to be $58 million, and that is broken down with Saddleback represents $9 million of that. IVC is $6.5 million. District services would be $3.6 million. Our basic aid is $24.7 million, and then the contingency reserve is $14.3 million of that. I would like to point out on the capital outlay line, which is kind of right in the middle, you'll see that we are planning, it's called a deficit of $274 million. That's because we have budgeted all of the projects that are in place to spend those. So it's not likely that we will spend the entire $419 million, but we budget it for all the projects that have been assigned to that. And then for the Pension Stability Trust Fund, that's $7,086,000. That's the cost of the increase of the STRS and PERS that we're budgeting to allocate to each of the entities to help cover and offset that increased cost for PERS and STRS. So digging down a little bit more into the budget, looking at the beginning balances and the revenues combined, this shows that we have a total budget of just under $1.1 billion. The unrestricted general fund is $373 million of that. And then the next largest pot is capital outlay at $420 million. And again, that's where all of our capital projects are. We have our retiree benefit and OPEB trust funds. It's $141 million. And that is fully funded in accordance with our actuarial study. And then our student financial aid is almost $22 million. So this is the Pell Grants, the SEOG grants, and the direct loans that go directly to our students. Again, digging down a little bit further, here are our expenditures. So our total expenditures are $870 million, broken down into major categories. Salaries and benefits represents $244 million of that. Our supplies and services is about $67 million. Capital outlay, again, is $374 million, and then payments to students and our other uses is $184 million. So now looking at some of our trends that we have for district-wide, our ending balance trend, you can see we're trending right around 20%. We ended the year 18-19 with the $77 million. That represents 28.2%. We're budgeting to spend down those reserves on a one-time basis to bring our balance down to $58 million, which is still 18.9% of our total expenditures. And then here's just kind of a historical perspective on our revenue and expenditure trends. So what we're showing here are, starting with 15-16, we show the change between our 15-16 year and our 16-17 year. And then we show the change between 16-17 and 17-18. and then so forth. We have the change between 17-18 and 18-19, and what our change looks like between our 18-19 actuals and our 19-20 budget. You can see there under the other local revenue, we are projecting that to increase about 3.78%. That's primarily the property tax increase that we put into the budget. And then the expenditure trends, those are larger, and that's primarily because we don't ever spend everything that we budget. And so we have budgeted in the step and column increases, our raises, the increases in the benefits, but we fully expect, and historically you can see, that there are vacancies that occur so that those don't get spent. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Stern, who will cover Saddleback College.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Gable. So we'll start looking at our enrollment trend. So as you can see, overall enrollment at Saddleback.
One second.
President Pendergrass.
Does the board want to do questions at the very end, or would you want to do it in segments?
You can do it at the end.
The end?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Unless someone's burning right now.
No, okay.
No worries. As we look back at the historical enrollment trend for Saddleback College, it looks fairly flat, but I want to make 2 points about this. First, this was at a time when the workforce at Saddleback was actually growing for a higher target that was not achieved. So that workforce is now available and ready for a higher capacity, larger college than we have now, and we can view that as a positive thing. But second, if you look closely at the makeup of our enrollments, you may notice a subtle decline in the blue area, which is our credit-bearing enrollments. This has been made up over the years by non-credit enrollments. That's fine and dandy, and FTS is an FTS. The problem is that those FTS are not reimbursed under the SCFF at the same rate, particularly the emeritus, which is the lime green section. That's 5,000 or 6,000 students for us, about 1,500, 1,600 FTS, and that's under the SCFF reimbursed at a much lower rate. Moreover, that's compounded by the fact that emeritus students are not eligible for the supplemental increases, the bonuses, if you will, under the second section of the SCFF or the achievement section of the SCF, the third section of the SCFF. So our enrollment trend overall has been relatively flat, but with a change in enrollment to the detriment of our budget under the SCFF. If you look at our ending balance trend, we're very proud of the work we did in the first 6 months of the calendar year. Particularly, we adopted some austerity measures that allowed us to move some expenses into contingency funding, into categorical funding rather, and we were able to hold some positions vacant. Deans and managers for the first time all pitched in and returned to us unspent budgets, kind of unheard of in higher ed, and we're very grateful for that. As a result, what we had projected in the narrative that you received 2 months ago as a $3.5 million budget deficit turned into a slight surplus for the year, which added to our reserves, which you see there as $12.5 million, our carry forward balance, if you will. Next year, however, the projected deficit, as you'll see, is about $3.5 million, which means we would begin without additional measures toward austerity to spend down those reserves. The year after that, we would move into a $6.5 million budget deficit, and the year after that, we would move to an $8.5 million deficit, which would spend down the entirety of our reserves if we did not intervene with additional measures. So looking at the revenue and expenditure trend, you can see that for 1920, we received essentially $5 million extra relative to the year before. This was in part due to some one-time revenue increases for interest, for instance. We received the equivalent of 2 years' interest instead of one. So some of that is one-time, but some of that was just not projected. It's certainly good news for us, and while we held down our deficit in this previous year by virtue of austerity measures, we owe thanks to the district in the coming year, the current year, because most of the deficit of $8 million that we projected in your narrative has been brought down to less than half that, approximately $3.5 million, thanks to additional revenue from the district. However, that does leave the $3.5 million that we still need to deal with, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So what we did around the time of our town hall, and as was reflected in the narrative you received 2 months ago, and as is the case today, we've set goals for the next 3 years that consist of a combination of expense contraction, particularly loaded at the front end. So we need to really get those expenses down in the front end because we don't really see gains in the front end. Well, those gains will take years to develop. So we really have no choice to address a deficit but to use budget contraction in the first year, hence 3% and then 2% in each of the following years. With enrollment growth, just the opposite. That really is backloaded because it's very hard to achieve enrollment growth in the first year. In fact, literally, you can't achieve enrollment growth because you're not going to see that in revenues until the following year, and even then it'll be diluted by the rolling average phenomenon. So it's going to take some years to see that. Similarly, SCFF gains were aiming to achieve a very high number, 3% in the first year, and that's largely by virtue of auto awards. So we believe that we're on target to meet that goal as well as the enrollment goal. But again, we won't see the increased revenue from those things until the second, third year and onward. So long-term solutions for us, I don't think the Chancellor hired me to oversee a college contraction into a smaller college. I was hired to get us out of this and figure out a way to grow us back to where we want to be and to meet the needs of the students we have in our population and our region. So we have to increase our enrollment to meet the size of the workforce we currently have. We, at the same time, are going to have to bring down the deficit so we can hold on to our reserves long enough to meet that goal, and we need to find some new revenue streams. This means that at the same time we're saving, and here's where the paradox comes in, we're going to need to be investing. We're going to have to save money so that we can spend money in specific areas to invest in the long term. So that means some new program development. It means more outreach than we've done in the past, particularly to K-12 and industry partners. It means continuing to invest in our equity measures and our student success measures so that students will be with us longer, but will actually complete as a result. And of course, additional expansion of our international programs, our emeritus program, whether it's funded sufficiently or not, we love it. We think it's the core of what we do and the core of our mission. So if anything, we would love to be able to expand it. And similarly in distance ed and dual enrollment and contract training.
All right, thank you. It's my pleasure to talk a little bit about the IVC budget. As you take a look at this first slide, you'll notice that it's very similar to the one that Dr. Stern showed in his first slide. But in particular, if you focus on the blue here, that's our credit, FTES, and note the very gradual decline there. That's clearly reflecting what's happening across the nation and in California with a little bit of softening for credit FTES. But then also look at the red and the green, and you'll notice that the green, the regular non-credit, is staying fairly steady, whereas the CP is actually showing some growth. And as Dr. Stern mentioned, that is a type of non-credit that actually has a higher funding level associated with it. This next slide is very interesting. I need to explain a bit to you. If you take a look at the 15-16 year, the amount of dollars that are shown there, the 39, is a little bit higher than it was in the prior year. But then as we begin to get into 16, 17, you notice a fairly dramatic drop in the ending balance there. That can be explained by the employee pay increase, which amounted to about $6.4 million. Step-in column, which was about $1 million. We added 10 new faculty for $850,000, and then the health and welfare costs that are associated with all that was $400,000. Then in 17-18, you'll see that ending balance stayed pretty much the same. But what's happening here is because of some reductions that we made to try to meet our budget and actually get our revenues matched with those expenditures, they're staying about the same. But there are two notable changes that we put into place that particular year. And again, referencing back in that 15-16 year, we had a terrible wish per FTE. It was in the mid 400s, where 525 is pretty much the standard across the state. So in this particular year, we improved our FTES significantly, thanks to our Vice President for Instruction and his skills. And so in that year, we brought it up closer to 500 FTES, as well as the productivity, wish per FTES, excuse me. We also benefited by the early retirement program, and that added some money to us. We had 41 retirements at IVC that year, and so that was quite helpful. So now in 18-19, our actual revenues went up about 5.1 million, which is about 8%. And a lot of that is due to the non-resident tuition increase, which amounted to about 1.3 million. We also benefited from the DRAC model 3-year averaging. That added 1 million. And then, of course, COLA that we're aware of, that was about 1.4 million. And our actual expenditures, because of not filling positions and other things that we were working on, our expenditures only went up by about 1.5 million. So when we jump to the 1920 projection here, a contingency reserve, as you see, is about 6.5 million. And this is due to the state funding model, as Vice Chancellor Anne-Marie Gable mentioned. Also the 3.26% COLA, a supplemental allocation, again, related to that model is about 1 million, and the student success, which is the third part of that model, about 1.3 million. We also benefited from about a $3 million redistribution of centralized balances, which mainly the interest income from the total budget. Our expenditure budget went up by 10.3 million. That reflected 14 new faculty for about 1.2 million. 500,000 was allocated to resource requests to support the classroom primarily. Step and column increases at about 1 million. And then the outgoing COLA was about 2.2 million. Now, this slide is related to the one you just saw, which was a graphic. This gives you the numbers related to it. Probably best to focus on the highlighted portions there for total revenue and total expenditures. So you can see throughout the years, 2015, 16, all the way to our current projections. So you see the dip and then the increases as we go forward. You can take a look at where some of the categories I talked about are here. Academic salaries, classified salaries, employee benefits, and things like that, and the impact on those trends. Now, in terms of budget planning, we have had for quite a number of years a very comprehensive and transparent, I might say, budget development process. We have on the order of 4 different planning committees and then a council over the top of that, all looking at budget issues from different perspectives. The committee structures are all shared governance from top to bottom, including our students, thankfully. And so the biggest portion of the work, though, is done, and the oversight is done in our Budget Development Resource Planning Committee. In 1920, we're looking at increasing personnel in facilities and IT. Both of those, some growth, but there's some replacements that need to go on there to shore up those 2 areas. We're focusing a bit more on professional development, and that's being appreciated across the board. We also, within the International Student Program, basically it's a matter of how big we want it to grow. So we have plenty of students that want to get into that program. Our focus for the coming year is to try to diversify that program. However, most of our students are either from China or from Korea, and our planning is trying to see if we can encourage Vietnam and some other countries to participate in that program. Our principles that we have in place, we have a contingency reserve of 1 million or higher, the best that we can do here. And productivity, as I mentioned, 525 is the standard across colleges in the state. We're working toward that 525, if not a little higher if possible. I'll have to mention that the low 400s was an occasion that I haven't seen actually in my career here in the district. So getting back out of that is extremely important for us to do. We're focusing on aligning our ongoing revenues and our expenditures, trying to keep those as balanced as we possibly can, and also using our one-time funds to reduce our ongoing cost and to generate some revenue that way. And then finally, a consistent and careful review of all of our vacant positions, so we make very careful decisions there as it impacts our budget. And I think you're back up.
Okay, so now moving to district services, kind of seeing the same slides here. The district services trends in the ending fund balance is hovering around 20%. So we ended the year with 23%, but then we are anticipating to spend down that slightly to where we'll end 1920 with 19%. And then here are the historical trends as far as our revenues and expenditures go. So you can see that as are the colleges, our revenues are trending up slightly, as are our salaries and benefits, as well as our other expenditures. So overall for district services for 1920, we are projecting to spend slightly more than our incoming revenues, but that's intentional, and that is one-time money that we have allocated for specific purposes to do so. We in district services are finally fully staffed from the SERP, so that's the Supplemental Early Retirement Plan. All the retirements that occurred, we have filled all of those positions. Our department budgets have been reviewed annually and adjusted in accordance with historical spending patterns. I just mentioned that we allocated $500,000 for one-time purposes. And then looking at the budget projections through 22-23, we will maintain adequate ending balances within district services. So now jumping back out to broader perspective on a district-wide basis, what are the budget trends that we're seeing? We are seeing additional state COLA and growth that do not meet the increased personnel costs over the past several years. We think that trend will likely continue to where our expenditures are outstripping the new revenue that's coming in to the district. Our district-wide personnel costs are making up, for the current budgeted year, 88.7% of the budget. It's a slight decrease of where we were last year. Last year it was at 90.5%. But as I mentioned, each of those are continuing to increase and becoming a larger and larger part of our ongoing budget. With PERS and STIRS, I kind of went over how those are increasing, but this chart just shows you what we're estimating and really what is in statute right now for STIRS, and then annually PERS increases there, but they've done their projections. I think the daunting part of this chart is if you think that back in 2013-14, which is not shown on here, the STIRS annual rate was 8.25%. Now jump forward to 1920, the STIRS rate is 17.1%. That is more than doubled of where we were just 6 years ago. For PERS, that used to be 7%, and now we're at 19.721%. And so since we established our Pension Stabilization Trust Fund in 15-16, the combined annual increase for these pension costs is about $7.9 million of an increase to our operating budgets just for PERS and STIRS alone. Here's kind of a spreadsheet that shows, here is the total deposit that we made back in 15-16, sorry, $39.7 million. You can see the withdrawals there. So currently our balance in our Pension Stabilization Trust Fund is $30.3 million. And then we've estimated, based upon the estimated increases for PERS and what's in statute for STIRS, what we're going to have to draw down each of the next 3 years with an estimate for interest earnings of $1.6 million. At June 30th of 2022, 3 years from now, we'll have $2.5 million. So I think what we're going to need to do is make sure that we continue to add more money into our pension stabilization trust fund so that we can continue and help the colleges offset those ongoing costs for that. Here is just an update. This slide is just to let you know of the projected savings for the early retirement incentive plan that occurred. We're 2 years into the plan, and so at this point we're projecting that it has saved $9.9 million between the 3 different entities. And then looking ahead, we're going to continue to monitor the SCFF changes and then the long-term trends and impacts to SOCCD. On the SCFF, it's changing. You know, it just came into effect in 1819. It changed in 1920. It changed in 1819. It's going to change again in March, and then it will probably change again in July. So we aren't set yet with what the final state budget funding model is going to be, and we're kind of waiting. I think we're fortunate that we are a basic aid district, so we're writing that out. And we are trying to look at what it's doing for us and what it's doing to us and how we need to adjust for that for the best benefit of our students and our colleges. We're going to continue to pursue tenants for ATEP. We are in the process of finalizing our education master and strategic plan, so we'll be looking at that. We are just kicking off, hopefully after tonight, we will be kicking off our facilities master plan. We have that contract on the agenda tonight to award that one. We need to procure and get technology master plan going in this current fiscal year. And then we're going to begin actively managing our cash holdings in order to maximize our earnings. We have an opportunity to move money from the county treasury into the local agency investment fund, which is LAIF. It's a statewide organization that is very conservative, but yet it's earning more than the county is right now, so we're going to be looking at that and moving money back and forth in order to maximize that. So with that, that concludes the presentation. I'm sorry I didn't have music for you. Probably would have been a lot better, but we'll entertain questions that you may have at this point.
Okay, so I assume we have questions. I'll go ahead and start off. Going back to the STRS and PERS, my understanding was that when the state said that it was going to put the obligation on districts to put in more, part of that argument is because it used to be that high, and then they gave relief because the recession and all that, and so now they're bringing it back up. But I thought there was a cap, like they were like, this is as high as you're going to be expected to go. And I thought when we established that trust, it was with the understanding that we knew what those cap numbers were. But then looking at the presentation, it looks like there's a fluctuation and it changes year to year. Can you explain that a little bit?
So as far as the rates go, yes, they had put in statute what those rates were going to be for STRS. And with the exception of 1920, we have hit the rates that were in statute. Now in 1920, one of the things that Governor Newsom did with the budget was to allocate money to pay down the liabilities on a statewide basis for both STRS and PERS, which then offset our required contribution. So we were going to be at, I think, 18.1%, and then by that additional the additional buy down that he did with state money, which was outside of Proposition 98, so it was really great for the K-14 segment, was to reduce that percentage down to 17.1. And then for PERS, PERS is something that the PERS board enacts annually in May. And that one is just based upon their unfunded liability on a statewide basis. And since the unfunded liability has grown so tremendously, those rates continue to increase. So it was an estimate. I think that the estimate was to try to get us through 21-22 I think with the additional money that we've received, we've kind of bought ourselves one more year. But I don't think the intention was that it was ever going to solve it entirely. It was just, let's do it right now. And so I think that's why at this point in time, we're asking to be able to use our basic aid proceeds in order to cover that incremental cost every year, just like we cover our OPEB liability every year.
So is that then going to be needed, like, is that a restructuring of the DRAC model at some point on our part, or a recommendation coming from you to do something like that?
So it would be a change to our board policy 3110. It's something that the Basic Aid Allocation Resource Committee, so BARC, recommended in the spring. BARC went through, and that's one of the recommendations that are coming from BARC. We discussed it with the board subcommittee on board policies last week, and so we will be taking that forward to BPARC on Friday as a recommendation. And assuming BPARC approves it, then it would come to the board for that additional language.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other, is it, oh, I'm on the wrong screen, that's fine. Trustee Lang.
Yes, I think one of the things that we have done is challenge the colleges to run pretty lean and mean in terms of their respective budgets. And it seems to me that it's probably up to us as trustees to confirm administration's self-policing of their budget as both adequate and reasonable. So I wanted to get some context about the 9.34 allocation of total revenues that we're making to district services, and perhaps some commentary on how this might come. And I realize you're probably not going to be able to answer this tonight, so I would expect maybe for this to come back as information at some future meeting. But some commentary on how this compares to maybe sister institutions of approximately the same size and degree of centralization that we have.
So I can tell you, we did do a little bit of research on that, and looking at the three other multi-college districts in Orange County. North Orange is at 8.7%, so we're slightly above North Orange at 9.34. Coast is at 14%, and Rancho Santiago is at 18.42%. I will say that Rancho is more centralized than we are. I would say North Orange and Coast are really more equitable and comparable to what we have centralized and what we don't have centralized on there. Grossmont Cuyamaca is at 11.48%.
Okay. All right. So we seem to be in there.
She was ready for it.
What's that?
She was ready for it.
Well, I sort of gave them a heads up that I was going to be asking the question.
Oh, a tip. I see.
I did have a quick question also for you, Emery, about I noticed that there was an allocation between Saddleback College and district service, Saddleback College and general expenses of $300,000. I wasn't sure what that was. I couldn't remember what that was.
That is the payment that we give to Saddleback College for the, I would say, honor of being on this campus.
Okay.
It's our rent payment to Saddleback
All
College.
right. So that's, you're paying your landlord there.
I'm surprised you didn't know that already.
I couldn't remember. I just couldn't remember that. One question that I had for President Stern, IVC kind of made a big deal in their budget about their wish numbers, which I understand is a measure of productivity. But your budget was noticeably silent on that subject. And so I'm wondering exactly where your wish is, and if it's below maybe where you want it to be, why that wouldn't be an additional goal to increase that.
Sure. So our Vice President of Instruction, since she came into office, has been working to move that wish up. We all agree that it probably isn't where it needed to be. And I think, Tram, correct me if I'm wrong, we're in the 440 region at this point. We're in the 440 region. So I think what we need to do is sit down and decide on a target. Our target will not be 525, and I want you to understand why. As a comprehensive community college, we have a full panoply of CTE programs, many of which by their program accreditation requirements, state legal requirements, or OSHA and safety requirements cannot reach anywhere near the capacity of a gen ed classroom. And as a result of that, our maximum capacity for WISH is probably going to be pushed down to about the 450 to 475 region. So I think we're going to have a discussion about what we think a reasonable target would be and shoot it. But I don't compare us to IVC because if I wanted to do that comparison, I would only do it for the gen ed and transfer things that I offer, in which case I think we're on good par with IVC. I will point out, Trustee Lang, we looked at very carefully at our summer WISH numbers, and our summer WISH numbers were actually on par with IVC's. And that's because summer, we don't run a lot of CTE programs. We run gen ed programs. So I want to give credit to our Vice President and all instructors who've worked very hard to increase it because I think they're conscious of it, and I actually think they're a little bit tighter than we sometimes give them credit for.
Okay. And then finally, two quick questions that I did not give anybody a heads up on, but I'll ask you about now. And that is, obviously, we're hearing noises in the general economy about the possibility of recessions. In some cases, we've got these trade wars going on that theoretically could impact perhaps our ability to attract international students. So I'm interested in any thoughts that you might have about that.
Any of us, sir?
Sure. Jump in there.
Want to say something?
Well, as you know, Trustee Lang and probably all of our trustees, we are in the longest uptick from a recession in history. So I think a recession is pending. I don't think it'll be as deep or as bad as it was back in 2007, 2008 when we did it. Where it could impact us, I think, is if we start having a turnover in our properties, since, we are basic aid with property taxes. So if we have folks that start losing their homes, if it gets that bad to where you're losing homes, then our property values could decline. Our interest rates could decline. As you said, we're trying to maximize our interest and earn as much as we could, so that could impact us. I think we will not lose basic aid status, but we could have a decline, and we would have to look at and potentially slow down what we're doing on the capital side. So I think you'll see tonight a lot of contracts that we are bringing forward for approval to kickstart our capital program. And if we get into a recession, that could impact where we're going and what we're doing with that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I will, and I'll let President Rockmore address the international part of the question, since he has 1,000 of those international students and I have 300, and I'll be really glad I only have 300 if trade war gets any worse. But I want to address enrollment in general. There are many colleges that are sitting by right now, to be quite frank, waiting for the next recession, because the nature of our industry is that we're counter-cyclical. We're not going forward with that assumption. We're going forward with the assumption that we need to find new students and new markets and do what we need to do regardless of what the economy brings forward.
Understood. So regarding international students, it's a point well taken. I think there's a couple of points. America still stands as one of the best educations around the world, and so it will continue to be an attractor. And in terms of the international impact on trade wars, other things that are happening, we're very careful at not putting all of our eggs in one basket. We're watching that very carefully. The International Student Program is really more of a revenue generator than what we're looking at in terms of an FTES generator. So we're not letting it impact the rest of our comprehensive program. Thank you. The rest of my questions had to do with the Associated Student Government budget, so you're off the hook for those.
All right, Trustee Jamal.
So thank you all for all three of you. That was a long presentation. I know it took a lot to develop it and then to present it. So Trustee Lang touched on the question I was going to ask about on district services. So I'll kind of parse it maybe a little differently. So we have the DRAC model for IVC and Saddleback, and that's some model, that's a formula that we use for our allocations to the two colleges. what model is used for district services? I know we're at 9.34%. Is that just where we ended up, or is that a target, or what, is there a formula that decides this is the amount of funding we need for district services?
So it's my understanding, I'll look to Kim if I answer wrong, but it's my understanding that when the DRAC model came into effect, that was the agreed upon percentage for district services would be 9.34% of the total. So you can see, again here, all the revenue goes to the colleges. And then once all that revenue goes to the colleges, we allocate out the 7.5% for the general reserve or the contingency reserve. We have our general expenses that we back out, and then it's the district services of 9.34%. Is that? So I don't know that it was a magic number. I think it was something that just came about when the DRAC model was created and came into existence.
Have we ever gone back and looked at it to see whether the 9.34%, I know you mentioned some benchmarking with Coast and Rancho and other districts, but have we ever gone back and looked at it to say, is 9.34% is correct? And you're saying that that's actually stipulated in the DRAC model, the 9.34?
Yes. Yes.
Does it make sense to ever go back and look at it? I mean, is that the right number? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? To
me, it feels about right. Looking here, you can see that we're pretty stable. So the money that we have coming in, we're able to save a little bit. That's primarily through vacancies, kind of looking at the trending here for district services. And granted, in some of those years, that's when we had the retirements. So 18, 19, it was higher because we did have a lot of vacancies due to the retirements. We are seeing, if you look right here, where we are spending and projecting to spend more than our revenue. So kind of as President Stern mentioned, looking down the road, we are spending down our reserves, and we're projecting to spend down our reserves, not at the same magnitude as Saddleback. I made the comment that we're good through 22, 23, but we're good because we have 3.9 million right now. That will be spent down based upon where we are just because of the increases in our salaries as well. We're not able to add more positions that we may need to help service the colleges, because in looking at those trends, we don't want to go negative. So we're looking at that and what we can do to streamline things to make sure that we're servicing the colleges like we need to.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, Glenn, Dr. Rockmore, I'm just curious, you gave a shout out to, I think you didn't mention it by name, but Chris McDonald and some of the things that he did to stabilize enrollment or grow enrollment. Do you want to share any best practices with us?
Well, that would be a lecture in itself, but the shout out was for Chris McDonald. Having been in that seat for a number of years myself, it is an extremely intricate process. It is juggling 15 different bowling pins in the air consistently. You're looking at a number of different factors on a daily basis, if not an hourly basis. As the enrollment trends start to build, you have to be well ahead of that to make sure you're scheduling out appropriately. You're managing cancellations and additions appropriately. So really what it amounts to is the level of skill and attention to how all of that's done. And I'm very fortunate, the college is very fortunate to have Chris at the helm doing that work.
So, Trustee Lang, you had a follow-up to one of his questions?
Just to follow up to the previous point that I think Trustee Jamal and I were both making, and that is perhaps it may be worth revisiting, rather than using an arbitrary residual allocation to district services, that we actually try and fine-tune that a little bit more. And I don't know if we need to come back, for a
special study item to request that or not, and see if the rest of the board would support that. But I would be in favor of that.
I think I agree in the sense that, I mean, there are enough newer people involved that may or may not have been around when that 9.34 was determined. And if we can find out like what was the determining information data for that number, has that changed? Does it need to go up? Does it need to go down? Does it need to be kind of like with the colleges, that their budgets fluctuate based on
They find it's not adequate.
model? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could be that number doesn't stay at a static, that it can fluctuate much like the college budgets fluctuate. So is that BARC committee? Is that DRAC? Like who would get into that, I guess, is what we're all trying to find out.
Well, it would be the DRAC committee that would look at that. So it's, if you guys would like us to look at that, we can look at that.
Well, I think it's an interest of at least some of us that we're funding the institution properly, while at the same time being conservative with our numbers. If that summarizes it, what I'm hearing.
I think what we're saying, I mean, Trustee Lang said it right. I mean, the number, was it 9.34% was established years ago? Maybe it's adequate, maybe it's not adequate. I think it's always good, and you know this, you're a professional in budgeting, to look at formulas and percentages and decide, does it make sense to continue with this model or to change it or to alter it? I mean, you always want to look at things. I mean, that's just the normal way of doing business when you do budgeting or run any type of organization. So I think that's all we're suggesting, I believe.
Seems reasonable. Trustee Wright.
I had just a couple of questions. One of them was already answered. I was interested in the productivity at Saddleback, and I think you said around 460.
No, sir, 440.
440.
440.
Okay, 440. Okay. The other one was you were going to try to improve your enrollment by 1%. Have you met that goal?
So far, we believe we will meet it this year, and I say that because summer numbers are, while we're still counting because of positive attendance, seem to be leveling out at about a 2% gain,
Okay.
and that'll give us buffer going into fall and spring semester. For fall semester, a little too early to tell, but we think we're headed for about a 0.5 to a 1% gain.
Okay.
So we think we're on track for a 1% gain, which I have to say, to the credit of the 1,400 people I support, is pretty miraculous in that we just started doing this work.
Sure. Thank you.
Trustee Milchker.
I just, first of all, want to thank all three entities for putting together an excellent budget presentation. I also want to thank you for trying to stay within budget, sometimes, having to make cutbacks and increase growth to students. I wanted to mention that when I went to the Guided Pathways presentation at Irvine Valley College, the faculty are cognizant of how we increase enrollments, how we increase our financial standing, how we raise more revenues, and they're working hard to do this as well. And I was very proud to hear this, because we need to certainly have adequate funding to educate all of our students in the wonderful way we've been doing this. The thing I was going to ask you about was, as you, I think I asked you this before, that the student-centered performing formula, we're $2 million below that, and because we're held harmless, we were actually allocated the $2 million. Do you think we could somehow mitigate this situation and somehow be able to get our same revenues that we expect to get from the student-centered funding formula that we got from our former funding formula? Thank you.
Time will tell.
Okay.
I think, there's definitely the supplemental allocation is more of a disadvantage to our district than it is to other districts. And then, then that kind of trickles into the success metrics. When we were doing our projections with the student-centered funding formula, when it was originally projected to go to 60-20-20, so 60% on FTES, 20% on supplemental, and 20% on success, we were projecting that we would come out of hold harmless. Now that the state has decided to keep it at a 70-20-10 split, we're going to need to look at that and project that out. So we definitely do much better on the success metrics than we do on the supplemental, but there are changes coming to the supplemental that may advantage our district. So that's why I said time will tell. We're going to have to ride this out probably for another year, maybe 2 years, to see where it's going to land and what the impact is going to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further requests to speak, thank you very much for your time. Next we have 4.2 ASG budget reports. You're on.
All right. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Faraz Khatib, ASG of IVC President, as already mentioned. I'm here to present you guys the ASIVC budget for the fiscal year of 2019-2020, alongside my small portion of my executive cabinet. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hillary Cornell. I am the ASG of IVC, Vice President of Budget and Finance. So here we're looking at the actuals per request of the board of last year's actuals of our budget. As you can see, our ending balance was $297,965. This was due to the reduction of our events and activities because of staff vacancies. And here's our budget highlights. We are budgeted this year at $977,965. Our beginning balance is $297,000, as mentioned before, and this year we have projected about $140,000 in ASIVC access sales. Excuse me, I apologize. $20,000 more than last year. We have contracted our bookstore and cafeteria commissions are still in place. And for this year's budget, as I mentioned before, we are budgeted $977,000. This year, we have funded ASIVC to attend a conference in Sacramento of the legislative meetings. Recently, we were able to have Leticia Clark attend our school and present to us a presentation. We were so moved and motivated by this that we are so excited to attend this legislative meeting and start to really involve ourselves in the state. This year, we have also decided to start funding more resources towards ATEP. ATEP has a student resource center that is currently vacant and mostly unused. So we want to provide those resources to them that we have at our home campus, like a full computer lab or a staff just to be there and supervise them so that they have their own space to study there.
Hi, my name is Shi Hangong. I'm the I4C Vice President of Finance and Budget. I'm very excited to say that we have 35 clubs this year, and the number is still increasing. I would also like to mention the base funding of those clubs has increased by $50. Now they are receiving $300 per semester, which develops I4C students' success initiatives. And now I'll give back to our president.
All right. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and revert your attention to our 2019-2020 ASIVC goals, which include student leadership development, resources, services and activities, facilities and technologies, and lastly, fiscal management. in order to go ahead and tackle these goals, we want to go ahead and expand our student representation of clubs and co-curricular programs into district, regional, and state levels, as well as our continuation of our support of equity-related programs for our undocumented students, our LGBTQIA+ students, our foster youth students, in order to break down non-academic barriers, as well as the addition of our Equity and Inclusion Center within our Student Activity Center, which we are very excited about. And lastly, our continuation of ASIVC Access Promotion in order to go ahead and fund the programs that we offer our students on campus and so forth. Without just a little quick ending to this, I just want to give a huge shout out to our students who came in to support. I know it was a pretty busy night being that it is a Monday and we have a lot to go ahead and tackle onto this week. So a big shout out to you guys and thank you very much. Without further ado, I just want to say thank you all for having us today in order to present this budget, and I will give it back to the board for any questions.
Okay, let's see. Do I have anyone with a request? Trustee Lang.
Yes, thank you all for a fine presentation on the budget and all your hard work in that regard. I did have a few questions for you that I wanted to ask you about. Skip that one for a minute. One of the things that one of the questions that I had is you've got an item in your budget that also is part of the ending budget balance, and it's that bookstore revenue accrual reversal. And so I'd like some explanation of what that is and why it's part of the ending budget balance and kind of what's going on with that. David, are you going to help us out here?
I was going to give him a chance to try to explain it as part of the educational process. This boils down to essentially a technical oversight at the year end. What happened was the fiscal office overstated or projected the bookstore revenue. I have the numbers.
Yeah, $91,330, it looks like.
Sorry about that. Yes. So the actual bookstore revenue at the time was $270,000. And the bookstore has a guaranteed revenue amount of $450,000. So what happened was the difference of $179,000 was supposed to be the receivable, and we had inadvertently used the $270,000 number twice, and the difference is the $91,000. So effectively, we overstated the receivable, thereby inflating the ending balance. So the plan is, and we fortunately caught it, towards the end. It was too late to change it, but it was early enough for our students not to commit the $91,000 for programs. So the plan is to reverse it as soon as the budget is posted, and that's why they set it aside in a special account so they could reverse it right away.
Okay, so the ending balance really should be the $97,797 and not that plus the $91,330, correct? Is that what you're saying, David?
The ending balance should be $297 minus the $91,000. So had we not overprojected the revenue, we would have had $91,000 less in the ending balance than what's displayed here.
Okay, I think I'm still missing something here. I'm looking at the schedule that Vice Chancellor Gable provided to us that showed ending balances of the various accounts. Let me see if I can find that page. That's over here somewhere.
So on the slide you have showing right now, you have the $91,330 as an accrual reversal, so it's a negative.
Right.
But your beginning funding balance up at the top is $297, so you're basically saying your real beginning fund balance is $206.
Correct. It would be $297, $965 minus $91,330.
So 206.6.
Okay. So what I'm looking at is I found it Exhibit A, page 18 of 41, of the adopted budget overview, which shows an ending ASG fund balance of $238,457. That figure consists of the 97,797 IVC contingency fund mid-year request of 97,797, that bookstore revenue accrual reversal of 91,330, and SCC's emergency reserve of $49,330. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what the 1920 ASG ending balance really should be. If it's not the sum of the 97,797 and the 91,330 for IVC.
You said page 18?
Yes, your Exhibit A, 18 of 41. It's the ASG fund ending balance on that schedule. See the number I'm looking at, Anne Marie? No. The title of it is Fiscal Year 2019-2020 Adopted Budget Overview. Hopefully yours didn't get renumbered.
Yeah, 248,457.
That's the, Trustee Lang, we believe that's the budgeted ending balance for 1920.
Correct.
So it should be both colleges.
It is both colleges, but your share of that is 189,000 plus.
Which is the 97 plus the
97,797 plus the 91,330.
And we'll have to see Saddleback's number.
Saddleback's number is 49,330.
Right, so
So
what
that would
means,
tell me that
that will decrease.
the 91,330 is included in that number. Does that mean that would go down by that?
Yes.
It does. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to determine. Okay, thank you. And then the other comment that I had on the IVC budget is that one of the things I was very impressed with Saddleback's budget that we'll get to in a minute is the commitment that they made to student scholarships, which was 20% basically of an adjusted number. And I'm trying to compare apples to apples on this thing with the IVC budget because in my mind, the amount that's specifically budgeted for scholarship awards is $62,200 to the foundation. Saddleback's number included additional funding to the financial aid, book scholarship, the Promise program, and the Child Development Center grants. And I'm not sure if there are similar additional line items in the IVC budget that wind up being equivalent of student scholarships or not. Can anybody answer that?
So what is, you have a line item here that says campus departments, including ATEP and IVC Foundation of $282,700. So what portion of that, if any, may be going towards student scholarships?
It would be 62,000 and some odd change.
62,200.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because it just seemed to me that that was a little light. Had you used the same kind of funding formula as Saddleback, you'd get like $176,000 in scholarships. Maybe there's a different philosophy here as to why student scholarships are less in your budget than appears to be the case in Saddleback.
That would be a great question.
I thought so too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Cecil Johnson, advisor to ASG. So if you look at the formula models for both Saddleback and IVC, they give a certain portion of their funds back to the general account at the very beginning of their budget process, whereas our student government actually looks at all of different requests and kind of allocates the funding to many different departments. And so why ATEP and Foundation are listed there is because those were two additional items, I guess, that hadn't been included in the past. ATEP was something just this past, I guess, over the summer, that they decided to fund the computing lab. So it isn't that they don't fund student scholarships. They're funding several different equity initiatives and other issues dealing with non-academic barriers. So I would kind of look at a lot of those different things and not just look at scholarships, but look at some of the other resources that are given, because you'll see that a significant portion of the budget is going toward student-led resources.
Okay, I appreciate that. Still would love to see more funding for scholarships through the foundation. Thank you.
I would also point out that Foundation actually didn't even utilize all of the funds that we gave them last year because we got some of those funds back. And so one of the things that the students have done with those extra funds is that's what they created, the Taviana Smith Emergency Fund that is available. So any leftover scholarship monies that the foundation doesn't use actually goes into an emergency fund process. So they are actually putting more money into it.
Yes, thank you. That's good information. Appreciate it.
Trustee Milchker.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for all you're doing for all the students at IVC. It was an interesting presentation. I was wondering, you decided this summer to fund the computing and student activities area at ATEP, which I assume is inside the IDEA building. So I just wondered where in the IDEA building it is, or have you already funded it? Is it already up and going? And is it a classroom in the IDEA building, or where is it? So thank you.
So it is downstairs on the first floor of ATEP. It's a student resource center, which they do have computers and other things like that. We actually decided to fund it this summer, so we just kind of put this in, and we're going to start doing that as the year goes on.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're up.
Oh, Trustee Witt.
Hillary, I just wanted to ask you, I applaud you for saying that, or enacting that you are going to be working with ATEP, but I was wondering, how have you calculated the dollar amount that ASG will be scheduling to ATEP? I mean, because we've never done it before, have we, with ASG?
I don't think so, but what our plan is to fund a staffing person or a position or an NBU or something to be there at the facility during the day, so that students may go in and out of it while they're taking classes at ATEP. Because a lot of students who are at ATEP don't really come to the home campus, or maybe come once because all of their classes are in that building. So,
okay.
Yeah, it would go to a position.
Trustee Jamal.
First, you guys did a fabulous job. Thank you for what you're doing. It was really excellent presentation, preparation. Just on a different note, I'm just curious, you said you were inspired by Letitia's presentation. What kinds of things are you guys gonna be or planning to do now as a result of that?
Well, part of it, we wanted to go ahead and participate in the leadership conference in Sacramento that I think is October 25th to the 26th. That is some initiatives that we would want to get our campus outward. Instead of, we've built a really great foundation within our campus, having great event life and so on. But we want to take our advocacy further than just the campus into state, regional, and local levels. And so that's something that Leticia kind of helped us give us a push with.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more requests to speak. Saddleback's turn.
We're not going on.
All right, members of the board, members of the public, we are extremely honored to be here and to present our budget. I am the Associated Student Government President for Saddleback College, Jake Ribzik.
I am the ASC Director of Budget and Finance. My name is Javier Osorio.
Okay, Javier is going to go into our actuals.
So for our actuals, Before we go into the incoming years, I would just like to go over our previous budget. We did not have any revisions throughout the year, so I am going to focus on the actuals shown on the last column. Our bookstore contract was initially misinterpreted in our favor, and therefore we ended with a higher revenue. We came in very close to our estimated revenue from the cafeteria and other vendors. And thanks to our opt-out system for our ASB stamps, we saw a healthy increase in revenue, and we couldn't be happier. Lastly, we subsidized 300 tickets for students for the Angels game, received a donation as part of our Don't Ghost the Vote campaign, and had movie ticket revenue totaling up the $8,773. I will go into uses of funds. Our campus life and co-curricular spending came in a little bit lower due to some of our divisions and ASG committees not spending all of their budget. For ASG operations personnel non-discretionary, this went down mainly due to our new permanent staff member coming in, being hired halfway throughout the year, and student staff members coming in at a lower rate. For student support, we increased our special topics grant in hopes of supporting as many students as possible. Unfortunately, we did not get as many submissions as we were hoping for, and this is why this item is so low. Scholarships, you'll see this number coming in a little bit lower than expected. This is due to the book scholarship project not getting fully utilized by the students. However, we did receive an after-action report back from them, and they are strategizing on ways for this budget to get fully utilized this upcoming year. But all in all, divisions only left about $20,000 left unspent, and $10,000 was due to just one project not using up their budget or not being executed. Now back to Jake for the budget highlights.
All right, thank you, Javier. We have a starting balance of $238,000, and that's due to unused funds from the previous year. We're projecting our stamp sales to be at $125,000. That is actually a conservative estimate. This is the second year that we have had the opt-out for our stamp, and we are very optimistic that that number could be higher, so we're excited to see how that plays out. When looking at our contracted revenue, we get 40% of contracted revenue, so that boils down to $223,000 from bookstore revenue and $29,000 from food services revenue, which includes the coffee cart that we have on campus, cafeteria revenue, and revenue to the vending machines. As mentioned previously, our student government is very excited to continue this and commit at least 20% of our revenue towards scholarships. So this includes funding of book scholarships, foundation scholarships, and funding, some funding for the Promise program. Another thing that we're really excited about, which we view as a highlight, is the work that we've been making with OCTA. We are committed towards seeing that program through, and we have the funds and the partnerships to see that through. So we're right now in the negotiation stage, and I'll talk more about that later in the presentation. And also, we are pursuing the construction of a permanent performance stage that would be in our quad, and we have put up the money to start funding that. I'm now going to let Javier go into the budget chart.
So for the adopted budget chart, in the third and fourth column, you'll notice the increase in beginning balance that Jake was previously mentioning. We are estimating that the revenue from the bookstore, cafeteria, and other vendors will remain steady. For our stamp sales, we will be utilizing previous 2 years as a benchmark, and as Jake said, we are making a conservative estimate for our stamp revenue coming in at $125,000. Now to uses of funds. As you'll notice in your line item budget, the biggest areas of change here are going to be campus life, as we allocated $60,000 here towards the student stage, and student support, as we allocated $60,000 towards the OCTA bus pass program. You'll also notice that the change isn't directly $60,000 and $60,000 respectively. This is because we reallocated money from our internal ASG budget to fund these programs. For ASG operations personnel non-discretionary, you will note a difference here, and this is due to our new permanent staff member coming in at a lower rate than our previous person, and us looking at 2 years worth of data and anticipating spending less on student workers for the office. Scholarships went down slightly. This is due to us previously intending a little over 21% of our budget, but we had to bring it back down to our committed 20% as we looked at ways to fund our new projects. Our updated emergency reserve reflects the higher beginning balance, and now I will give it back to Jake so we can talk about our goals for the year.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my most exciting parts. I love the goals. We have a lot of them. They're very lofty, and we're excited to get started on them. The three main that I'm going to be talking about is civic engagement and advocacy, breaking down non-academic barriers, and community building. So with civic engagement and advocacy, we want to make sure that on all the capacities that we can, on a campus, district, local, state, federal level, we want to be advocating for our students. Last year, we were fortunate enough to go up to Sacramento with Letitia Clark and to actually do some lobbying. And then also we were fortunate enough to attend the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. I attended both of those, and the feedback was they were extremely important to our ASG, and there are programs that we would like to continue in the upcoming year. We are focused on breaking down non-academic barriers. This is an echo from ASG's of last year, because there's so much work to be done, and every day we're moving the needle, but we're not there yet. Some of the things that we're looking towards doing is, of course, that OCTA bus partnership. If we can get this bus pass program through, we would be knocking down transportation as a barrier for our students in Orange County, which is extremely important to us, especially as many of our own members in the ASG, including myself, take the bus. We want to continue to work with the administration and with our campus partners in getting affordable on-campus housing, and there's a lot that we can do. We can sit on the committees that will be making those decisions, creating those RFPs, and we can continue to mobilize students and educate not just students, but faculty and the local community as a whole. And then speaking of community, we want to focus on community building, because it's important that students know that we are a resource for them, so there's a lot of things that we want to do. We would like to improve our messaging and improve our transparency, and we got a lot of that information from that parliamentary training that we got. There's a lot of cool things that we can do and that we're going to pursue to ensure that we're being transparent and to ensure that we're getting students involved from all over the campus. And as mentioned before, we are working to get an on-campus stage in the quad. We're going to be working with the campus-wide committee on beautification. That's not just important to getting that stage done, but it's important that on all aspects of improving the structures of our campus and improving our campus as a whole, that what students want is being reflected in that. So we want to be in that process, and we will do that. Well, with that said, I think that's all we have. Is there anything that we can clarify? Any questions that you guys have?
Is the list not been cleared from? So I don't know if I can.
Can you just withdraw our own request?
Yeah, withdraw your own and then resubmit if you want to do one. Okay, so Terry, you staying on there or? There we go. So it looks like right now that I have a request from Trustee Milchker.
Yeah, thanks again. Also, it was a really excellent presentation also. I think a lot of the things you're doing are really interesting. One of the things I'm glad you're getting funds from the vending machines on campus. That's great. So you don't mind spending money in the vending machines when you know it's going to student government. A percentage of it's going to student government. And I think your advocacy for with OCTA to try to get bus passes for students is wonderful. That'll help you and all future students. So keep up the advocacy, and working to become more greater advocates is wonderful too. Have you given scholarships for child development students in the past? Are these for students that are at the child care center?
Yeah, so we have, and it helps reduce the cost for people who need that program. So last year we did it, and I don't know if we've done it the other years, but we're very excited to continue
So
it.
this is the students in the child care program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. My kids were in the child care program before I was on the board of trustees when I was taking classes here. So I think it's really important to help students to get funding for taking care of their students, either students or staff or anybody that needs help to get extra help to help fund their students in child care is really a good idea. And I'm glad you're working with the statewide student senate. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Trustee Jamal.
Excellent presentation. I like goal setting as well. So I'm curious, when in setting your goals, did you get a pulse of other students? Did you take surveys? How did you determine that you're on the right track? I think you are, and thank you for also the huge commitment to student scholarships as well. That's awesome.
So I mean, a lot of like what we're doing is, like I mentioned before, it's echoing from the past because we haven't completed so many of these goals that we have set, and we think it's we have now the opportunity, we have the momentum to complete a lot of these goals. We do a lot of goal setting with our ASG. That's what we went over. We went over our values and things that we want to focus on during our retreats. And we have looked at data. We took a poll on housing insecurity, and that's data that we're taking that's leading us in the direction to do things like break down non-academic barriers. And then when it comes to civic engagement and advocacy, like that is something that we as a student government should be doing because inherently, because we are their representatives. So if we can increase that, we should increase that. And there are opportunities, as I mentioned, on a local, on a state, and even on a federal level to get involved. So that's definitely an opportunity which we are going to take advantage of.
So you don't do any formal surveying, like?
Well,
it doesn't. You don't necessarily need to.
We don't.
Nice
but the polls that we have taken are done properly, and they're done throughout the whole entire campus. But yeah, we have not polled any of our goals or future goals. But that is definitely something that maybe we could include in the upcoming year.
Might get some new ideas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And get people involved in the student government.
Thanks.
Do you have something to add?
Yeah.
So to just compliment what Jake was saying, we did conduct a housing and needs survey, which did raise up an issue of housing insecurities, which was enough of a wake-up call for us to jump on and try to attack this face front.
So you heard that from fellow students that
Yes.
that was an issue for them.
And when we asked them, are you interested in programs that might assist you, like free groceries or maybe a fund, an emergency fund, we got a lot of responses saying yes, yes, yes. So we do recognize this need. It is a real need, and it is expressed by students.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Trustee Jamal?
No, Lang.
Oh, I mean Lang, sorry. You just had yours.
Yes, thank you. I also wanted to congratulate you on a nice budget presentation. Good job, guys. One thing that I also applaud you on the degree of funding that you're making to the foundation. I think that for scholarships, I think that's terrific, and just student support in general. Another nice touch that I really liked about your budget presentation was the mission statement that you included at the end. Good job. One question that I had was, I thought I heard you say, in the budget that we received, it looked like there was 60,000 again designated for the bus pass program and the student performance stage. And then did you wind up paring that back? Did I hear you say that or not? And the other thing is I think in the president's earlier remarks, I thought I heard you say something about possibly some additional outside underwriting for that program. So maybe you could talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So when it comes to OCTA and that bus pass program, there's a lot of different ways that we could fund it. And right now, we have the amount of money that we're putting up would fund for like on-campus students, but there are a lot of even internal sources within the campus, like the Veterans Program, DSPS, and they're already pursuing these things, so we can actually get money from them to help reduce the cost of the program. And then also there is a sustainability grant known as LC Top, which is a grant which I believe the first college that implemented this program used, and it did waive the first year amount. And then with our stage, you want to add anything?
So, as we were looking to fund these programs, we went back to our budget, and internally we started shifting money around from our internal ASG budget and operations personnel non-discretionary, so as to not make that impact as big as it looks. So we went leaner in a sense, and moved money around to support us.
Okay. One suggestion that I have for the future, and that is if I'm looking at Exhibit B, page 409, page 4 of 9, where you lay out the adopted tentative and finally adopted 2019-2020 budget, you indicate the various uses of funds there. But then when I looked at the detailed schedule, it was difficult to tie out the various funds that you have listed here. Ties out in total, no problem, but individually by category to the top schedule, that I couldn't do. And so from a reader standpoint, that would help.
Yeah, next time we will definitely have it presented in that way.
Duly noted. Thank you.
So this bus conversation, it's interesting because I was going to mention this off to the side, but now I'll do it out loud. We had our study session on Thursday of last week about the educational master plan, and they were talking about ways to, outreach and how can we, and the next day, I work in Irvine. I'm driving down Bryan Avenue toward my school, and there's an OCTA bus wrapped in Golden West colors with free bus pass.
I saw that.
Absolutely. And I'm like, wait, we're not technically Golden West service area. What's going on? Yeah. But I guess this just worked.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely comment on that because that's something that they are committed to doing if we go with the program. They want the program to succeed. In fact, down here, there's a bus that's wrapped and it says SSC, but that's, Santiago Community College or something like that. So yeah, they are very committed to having the program work. And I mean, it does work looking at data from other colleges. So yeah, I mean, everything from wrapping buses to even having like an on-campus town hall or a different events where they can educate the students. That's what they're committed to doing. And that's not even bringing up what our student government would do with the footwork and getting all that information out.
So that's part of that same program then?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's great.
So it's for their college. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Seeing no further requests to speak, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Okay, so.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to entertain a motion to extend the meeting until 9:30 p.m.
Have a motion and a second to extend the meeting to 9:30 p.m. with 4 public hearings. Thanks for the challenge.
The public hearings go.
Yeah, I got 4 public hearings.
They go fast.
Sure. Are we waiting for a, there we go. So we had a motion from Trustee Jamal, a second.
I can do to 10.
No, we'll probably just have to do it again. So we have a motion and a second. And a vote. It says 4.2 on the budget.
Well, no, I'll vote for the student budget. That's okay.
No, that's not an action.
Yeah.
Vote for it anyway.
So what are we on?
Nothing.
We're trying to extend the meeting.
Oh, we haven't even gotten into our meeting yet.
Hopefully within the next
I know, we haven't even got to consent items. Okay, President, it's 8:51.
Anybody pulls in the 5s, we got problems.
We could do it just with the vote, hand vote. We don't have to, can't we? Yeah, what's wrong with that?
No, it's got to be on the record.
Okay. have to close all three rings today too.
So this is a new one. If we don't get the vote in before 9, are we automatically out? That doesn't work that way?
District doesn't get their budget.
It's true. So then why do we bother with the extension?
Clock is way off from the red clock. So
That's what I was looking at.
this is 7 minutes behind.
There you go. Okay, motion passes. The unanimous trustee yes vote and I would have thought the students say no, but student advisory yes vote. No, I want out of here. All right, so that brings us to consent calendar. Do I have any polls? No? Okay.
Take a second.
No. Do I have any polls? I don't see any. All right, I see none. So at this point, I will entertain a motion for the balance of the consent calendar, which is trustee Wright and a second from trustee Witt. So we can go ahead and vote on the consent calendar. All right, motion passes with a unanimous yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. Next, we have 6.1, which is a public hearing. So we temporarily adjourn to go to the public hearing, right? You have to. That's okay. All right, so we're now board agenda item 6.1, the approval of the proposed budget of the district for the fiscal year 2019-20. Before I have that public hearing, Vice Chancellor Anne-Marie Gable will provide an introduction.
So the agenda item pertains to a public hearing for the approval of the South Orange County Community College District proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. Public notices have invited all interested persons to attend this public hearing and express opinions about the South Orange County Community College District proposed budget for 2019-2020.
So does the board have any questions to staff to assist with their understanding of this matter? I think we did that earlier. So board item 6.1, public hearing on the matter at hand is now open. I'm doing that right now. Okay, so at this point, it's time for public comments. They are not to exceed 5 minutes. No one jumping up. Okay, so Vice Chancellor Anne-Marie Gable, does the staff have any, or there's no questions, so no responses. Public hearing is now closed. Is there any further discussion on this matter by the board? Seeing none, item 6.1 is concluded. Moving on to item 6.2, approval of the proposed budget for fiscal year 19-20. We have a motion from trustee Lang, second from trustee Wright. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. The budget is approved unanimously with the trustee unanimous vote and a student advisory yes vote. Moving on to 6.3. We are now at agenda item 6.3, District ATEP Phase 1 Site Grant of Easement to Irvine Ranch Water District public hearing. Before we have that public hearing, Vice Chancellor Anne-Marie Gable will provide an introduction.
So the agenda item pertains to a public hearing to allow the district to enter into a grant of easement to the Irvine Ranch Water District for utility purposes to construct, reconstruct, and maintain water and sewer pipelines on the ATEP Phase 1 site. The utilities service the IVC IDEA building and will provide future capacity for Phase 1 of the ATEP site. There is one additional board item that relates to this public hearing, item 6.4, which is the adoption of resolution number 19-17 to authorize entering into a grant of easement to Irvine Ranch Water District.
Does the board and anybody have any questions to staff assist with their understanding of this matter? Seeing no request to speak, board item 6.3, public hearing on the matter at hand is now open. Anybody wishing to make public comments? This time we're limiting to 2 minutes. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. And is there any further discussion on the matter by the board? Seeing none, 6.3 is concluded. We'll now move to item 6.4, which is the adopting the resolution, which if passes, I will hand out for everyone to sign. So we have a motion from Trustee Lang and a second from Trustee Wright. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. Trustee Jay, we're voting. We have a unanimous yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. So I will pass this folder this way and have it work its way back for signatures. Now we're on 6.5. We are now on board agenda item 6.5, certification of addendum number 02 for the program environmental impact report of the 2011 facilities master plan for Saddleback College and Irvine Valley College pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA. Before we have that public hearing, Vice Chancellor Anne-Marie Gable will provide an introduction.
The agenda item pertains to a public hearing to consider the certification of addendum number 02 of the program environmental impact report as stated on the agenda item. Public notices have invited all interested persons to attend this public hearing and express opinions about the ATAS building project for Saddleback College and the related CEQA compliance.
Does the board have any questions to our staff or our consultants to assist with their understanding of this matter? Seeing no request to speak, public hearing on the matter at hand is now open. Anybody from the public wishing to speak, comments are not to exceed 5 minutes. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. 6.5 is concluded. So next we move to 6.6 to adopt resolution 19-18, certification of addendum number 2. I have a motion to approve from Trustee Jamal and a second from Trustee Lang, and a request to speak from Trustee Milchiker.
If I understand this right, maybe I don't. It looks like it's talking about the demolition of the current task building. Is that, am I reading it correctly?
No, what this is doing is removing the concept of demolishing the TAS building. So the decision has been made to try to keep the TAS building and then to move the programs that currently reside in some of the portables down in the village into the TAS building so that eventually we can get rid of all the portables on the campus.
Okay, yeah, thank you for explaining that.
Trustee Lang.
I'm assuming that we have done some sort of a study to figure out what the conversion costs would be for the TAS building.
Yes.
And what is that?
It is, I want to say, around 30 million to completely renovate it, and I'm going to look back. Yes. My team tells me I'm correct.
Yeah,
And that actually is a renovation rather than a reconstruction of tests?
So it's basically a complete renovation. It would be tearing it down to the studs. So you would leave the basic framework of the building, but we would have new, the outer shell would be new. We would have all new waterproofing. The roofing would be fixed and established. So it would basically gut the structure and modernize it and bring it up to current code where it needs to be.
But my recollection is there were also some foundation issues associated with that, which sounded to be pretty substantial.
It would include the compaction that is necessary in order to bring the foundation up to current standards as well.
I'm just wondering how you do all of this without effectively raising the building.
Well, when we get to that point and we hire an architect, we would have the architect look at it and do the cost analysis of which would be best, to raise it and rebuild or to renovate the existing structure and what's there. And then we would kind of weigh the cost benefit of each at that point in time. But the concept of keeping a TAS building is there because we want to get rid of all the portables on campus and move those over. So, we're saying we're keeping the building. That doesn't mean that that particular building itself will stay. It may very well come down and we build a new one in its space. But what this environmental impact report addendum is doing is allowing us to have a site for that building where it's currently located. Because when we had done the previous addendum, we had said that we were going to demolish it and put it as a parking lot. So we're not going to put it as a parking lot anymore. We're going to have a building there. So we needed to add it back into the addendum that we will have a building on that site.
Thank you.
yeah, I have an extra question to ask when you finish.
You're on the list.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
I go by the list.
You go with it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Trustee Milchiker.
Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, this has to do with this agenda item and the following agenda item, of course. I know we discussed this a lot, and the initial thought was to keep the test building, and then the next thought was to demolish it because, as Trustee Lang said, there were some problems with the foundation sinking into the ground, and it was not a good site. And then I think we moved the tennis courts in order to put the task building in a different site. Didn't we do that? What?
I told you you should have taken my pen.
Did you get like some marshmallow thrown at your face or something?
Jamal was like trying to tell him he's got pen in his face.
You're in charge. I'll be back.
Okay.
We needed that, teacher.
We needed a little comic relief, I guess, so that was good. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to.
So to answer your question,
this is a really important question
Milchiker.
because okay, we have the TAS building, the TAS building, the Technology and Applied Science building. Then we have the ATAS building. I know that initially we were going to demolish the current TAS building, and now I guess, but the automotive department was very happy to be in the portables, but now they're apparently going to be moving to ATEP. ATEP. So because they're starting a whole new program for the automotive department, which sounds pretty exciting, and for self-driving cars and all that at ATEP. So that does sound exciting, but I'm kind of surprised about this move for the TAS building. That's why I misread it, because the latest was we were going to demolish it and build the building someplace else. And I just want to understand what's going on. I'm sorry.
So the programming of it has completely changed.
Okay.
Originally, what they were going to do was to renovate the current existing task building.
Yeah.
And they were going to put the automotive program in there, as well as the environmental science and the architecture program and all the programs that are going into ATAS. When they started doing the programming for TAS, they realized that the building was too small to fit the needs of the programs that were going into it.
Right,
So
particularly
that was,
the automotive program.
So that's when they started exploring the concept of building a brand new building,
Yeah.
which we are now calling ATAS, and locating that building in the parking lot where it's currently going to be located, because TAS was too small. At that point in time, it was just, well, let's just swap it out, basically.
Right.
Let's build the new ATAS. We will demolish the TAS building, and we will convert that to additional parking.
Right, that's,
So that was the plan. As things have changed, and as we continue to look at the needs of the college and what will best serve the college, I think the decision has been that, well, let's keep the TAS building, because we have several programs and departments that were intended to stay in portables forever. No home had been identified for them.
and one of them might have been the automotive program, which is now going to move to.
No.
No, now. No, I know, now it's moving to ATEP.
To ATEP.
Right.
No,
so
this
I do know
is
that.
for the police services, for reprographics, for some of the community education and adult education programs, where either they were in portables or they didn't have a home identified on this campus. So when the concept of we should get rid of all portables on campus came about, we realized that we have a building site location. I won't say a perfectly good building, because the building does need a lot of work. That it would be better to house all of our programs in a permanent structure rather than to keep portables on campus. So that's what this environmental impact report is doing, is saying we are now going to keep a building on the site that the TAS is currently located. And we're going to move programs into that site.
Okay.
And eventually we will get rid of all the portables that exist on this campus by doing so.
Okay, so the TAS building, TAS stands for Advanced Technology.
TAS is
Technology and Applied Science. I'm sorry, and that's where the ecology programs were being taught and all those particular programs. So now, if we're going to have an ATAS building and a TAS building, this is kind of somewhat.
We'll
new.
probably eventually change the name of TAS once the new programs.
What does
are in there.
ATAS stand for?
Applied Technology and Sciences.
Advanced Technology Applied
Oh,
Sciences.
okay. See, nobody knows.
They know.
Okay. Okay.
So we still have the ATAS building.
Yeah, and
We
that's why
still are
they're moving, and that's why they're moving the tennis courts for the
Why
for
we're
the new
moving the
building.
tennis courts,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
I just want to understand all this is happening behind my back, so now I know. Okay, thank you. And this will all be funded through basic aid funding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Wright.
That was my question. I was wanting to know where the money was going to come from. But that building, again, has to have a lot of work, because I've been in that building. I've seen those cracks, and that's not good.
Right.
Well, from the state. Yeah. Trustee Witt.
Thank you. She knows what that means. I'll say acceptable. Thank you.
What was that? I'm sorry. No more requests to speak. We'll go ahead and vote on the item. Pass that to Jim.
I almost voted no.
I wish Blake was here.
Trustee Jay. Thank you. Unanimous yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. Next, we have 6.7, Saddleback College Advanced Technology and Applied Science. Gee, that's what ATES stands for. Change order. Motion from trustee Lang, second from trustee Witt. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. Next, we have 6.8, Irvine Valley College Fine Arts Building Project Architectural Services. I have a motion from trustee Lang, second from trustee Wright. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.9, Irvine Valley College Student Services Center Renovation Project Architectural Services. Motion from trustee Jamal, second from trustee Lang. Seeing no request to speak, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.10, Irvine Valley College International Student Travel 2020, the Choral program going to the Netherlands and Belgium, along with trustee Melchiker. Motion from trustee Wright and a second from trustee Lang.
Very cool, very cool.
Your little break helped you, didn't it?
Yeah. Okay. See no request to speak. We'll go ahead and vote on the item. Did the AC break at 9 o'clock? Is that what happens when we go long? Is that to get us out of here? It's working.
It just came.
If you can't go on the trip, if you don't vote for it, there you go.
Yeah, I'm not voting for it if I can't go on it.
All right. Unanimous trustee yes vote, student advisory yes vote. 6.11, Saddleback College Stadium and Site Improvement Project Construction Management Services Amendment number 1. Motion from trustee Jay, second from trustee Wright. A request to speak from trustee Jamal.
Yes. So this came up on our conference call with the officers. I'm not really understanding the rationale for this increase. Just please don't say it's weather, because I'm not going to like that answer.
No, it's not weather,
Okay.
but the contract has been extended and they are delayed in getting the project done by almost a year. So we're having to extend the construction management services due to the project not getting done timely.
Because of weather.
One of many things.
She's avoiding saying it. But that's the
She
reality.
voted, but I'll say it.
So
It says it right there in the report.
is this something that we're required to pay, or has this been a request from the construction management services?
We utilize construction management services in all of our construction projects. And so we need to continue having the additional oversight. The construction managers report directly to us and they help us with the oversight of all of our construction projects. So we need to extend the contract since the construction is still going on. They're on the ground every day that the project is underway. They're overseeing the contractors, making sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing. And
Yeah.
so since
So
the
let me
project
understand.
is delayed,
Because, the project was delayed, and during that time when it was delayed, did they put in the services during that time that would equate?
Part of district.
Since it's delayed, I assume they weren't doing much during the delay. So
Something to think about.
wouldn't we just shift the funding that would have gone to them during the delay and then move it to the extension, so thereby not requiring us to have a change order of, what is the amount?
$538,000.
$538,000.
Now, they're here on a daily basis, and so they're still overseeing the construction on a daily basis, and so really this is an extension of 9 months from what the original contract was. We don't get to send them home because there is still a little bit of work going on. And when there are rain delays, they're in the office doing the paperwork that is necessary for the project to keep everything in order.
So, I'm sorry, I know it's late, but how did they come up with this number? Like, who's here? Brandy, can someone explain this?
Hi, Brandy Delana, Executive Director of Facilities Planning. So you're all aware, we're having problems with the stadium project, and the contractors aren't performing as well as we would want them to. The construction manager is on site to document quite often what those problems are so that when and if we go to claim, they will provide us with all of the insights on a day-to-day basis as to why those things aren't happening. So they've been doing that all along for the last year. Every time there's a snag, they'll help us understand what that snag is and how we might reduce our liability for that. So we really need them to be in place for this next 9 months so that we can continue to document and continue to have the information that we need going forward.
All right. You could pass it on to Terry.
Trustee Witt.
Okay, Brandy or Anne Marie, is there anything that we can fall back on, like contributory fault? I mean, is it all our fault? Is it all God's fault? I mean, seriously, I've never seen a contract like this. Well, maybe I should ask, in the contract, did it say that if it rained or whatever, there would be some type of negotiations, or if they didn't finish on time, they'd have to work double time or overtime without compensation?
Not as it's related to the construction management services, which this project is for.
Okay.
As it's related to the general contractor, there are clauses in there where we can assess liquidated damages for any time that they exceed the time frame that was promised within the contract.
Have we done that?
Not at this point in time. We're still in the midst of the contract. We are tracking those liquidated damages so that when we get to the end, we'll be looking at that. You know, we have extended the contract and awarded change orders for days, for scope changes that have occurred, for some of the rain delays that have occurred, for some of the, although we haven't awarded this one yet, but there was a delay with DSA. And so, you know, we've agreed that we need to extend the contract for the number of days that are beyond the baseline schedule and when DSA came in. So, you know, as we've said before, this is a difficult contract. It's not going smoothly, and it will not go smoothly until we are done. So I think that's why we are extending this out all the way through July of 2020 at this point in time. You know, as you can see from this, we thought that we would be done this October. That's not going to happen. And so I think the construction manager services are critical in helping us down the road when we get to the final negotiations on where we are with this contract and did they uphold their end of the contract for the maximum guaranteed price that's in the contract.
Would it be effective, well, would it be a savings for us if we turned around and asked for damages? Or, I don't want to say lawsuit, but...
So, would it be a savings? When you assess liquidated damages, the liquidated damages are established when you enter into the contract, and the dollar amount of the liquidated damages is supposed to cover all of your costs above and beyond what you incur due to their delay. So if you were to get into a lawsuit, typically the only thing you would be able to recover would be the liquidated damages. Now, that's not to say that you can't say, hey, we incurred all these additional costs. But most of the time, it's the liquidated damages or the LDs that we have to look at. We're not at that point yet. Like I said, we're tracking it. We haven't assessed any yet because we are still trying to work with the contractor and work through the issues and concerns that they have and that we have so that we can get our end product as quickly as we can, although we all know that it's not quick enough for us, but we are trying to work through it.
I'm certain that you are as frustrated as we are. And I think as we sit
Probably
here,
more so.
we want to be due diligent how we spend this money. And I don't even know if I want to know the cost of it to date. And we eventually will find out.
It's right here.
No, it's not. The cost of what it's going to cost us now. I'm talking about at the end, what is the stadium really going to cost us? I mean, have we kept a running tap?
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to know.
You should, actually, don't say that.
No,
You
I don't
should
right
wanna
now, 'cause
know.
I
And
wanna
it's
go
in-
to sleep tonight.
Under 7.0, under the facilities, you'll see the running cost.
It's there.
Just saying, a pool
I
at
will
IVC
know,
would have been
but not
cheaper,
tonight.
and if it rains, it helps fill it. But, yeah, that's just me. Yeah. It was last year. That's what delayed the construction, was the rain.
So you grew up in Pennsylvania, I grew up in Michigan, we don't have these.
Okay, it
We just
sprinkled a
keep
lot
going.
last year.
We just keep building, but whatever.
Okay, no more requests to speak.
Dave-
Go ahead.
Dave had a request. Oh,
I'd go by the list.
okay, all right.
Ask Trustee Milchiker. Okay. We'll go ahead and vote on the item.
The next one is also on this contract.
Unanimous yes vote. Student advisory yes vote.
Mr. President?
Yeah. Are you ready? Are you ready this time? We good? We got it figured out?
I'd like to entertain a motion to extend the meeting to 10 p.m. Pacific time.
In what time zone?
Pacific Daylight Time.
So I have a motion from Trustee Jamal to extend the meeting up to 10 o'clock. Do I have a second? Second from Trustee Lang.
And no more foreign objects in your mouth.
Yeah. I'm never asking Grace for anything ever again. Wait, now we have different movers and seconders. It was,
Nobody cares.
all right, that's fine. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead and, there we go. Unanimous yes vote. Student Darcy advisory vote. I'm going to make my students watch this meeting as punishment. Yeah, no, I'll go do something else. Okay, so now we're on 6.12. There it is. Saddleback College Stadium and Site Improvement Project, Material Testing and Inspection Services Amendment, number 2.
This is to pay more money.
This is moved by Trustee Lang and seconded by Trustee Wright. Seeing no requests to speak, go ahead and vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote, student advisory yes vote. 6.13, Saddleback College Gateway Building Project, Architectural Services. Motion from Trustee Lang, second from Trustee Wright. Seeing no requests to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.14, dual enrollment with the district, Saddleback College and Capo Unified College and Career Access Pathways Partnership Agreement. Motion from Trustee Lang, second from Trustee Jay. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.15, grant acceptance, Irvine Valley College Innovation and Effectiveness Grant Agreement. Motion from Trustee Lang, second from Trustee Jamal. Seeing no request to speak, vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.16, agreement for software development services, Neudesic. Motion from Trustee Lang, second from Trustee Witt. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.17, award of contract for consultancy services for the district and college's facility master plan development. Motion from Trustee Jay, second from Trustee Lang. Seeing no request to speak, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.18, award of contract for vending and pouring rights for beverage products district-wide bottling company, Pepsi Beverages Company. Motion from Trustee Lang, second from Trustee Witt. A comment from Trustee Jamal.
Yes, I think this is the right item. I just want to be sure that funds from this contract are going to the colleges, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Explicitly stated in the item.
Yeah, I read the item again. I just wanted to be sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The majority of the funds go to the ASIVC, but then at Saddleback College, it's split between the college and their AS.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no more requests to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. Next, we have 6.19. Oh, yay, another public hearing. We're now at Board Agenda Item 6.19 regarding a public hearing on the district initial proposal to the South Orange County Community College District Faculty Association. Before we hold the public hearing, Vice Chancellor Cindy Viscacho will provide an introduction.
Thank you, Board President. The board will conduct a public hearing to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the district's initial proposal to the South Orange County Community College District's Faculty Association. If the board has any questions throughout this public hearing process, I'm here to assist.
Does the board have any questions for staff to assist with their understanding of this matter? Seeing none, Board Item 6.19, public hearing on the matter at hand is now open. Public comments are not to exceed 2 minutes. Okay. 6.19 is now concluded. We will now move to 6.20, adoption of the South Orange County Community College District proposal to the Faculty Association, Article 30.8. I have a motion from Trustee Jamal and a second from Trustee Jay. Seeing no request to speak, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. It's not switching to the next thing. Yeah, why didn't it go? There, it's not going to 6.21? Oh. Okay. 6.21, academic employee and classified administrative personnel actions. Any changes?
No changes.
We have a motion from Trustee Wright, second from Trustee Jay. Seeing no request to speak, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. You have unanimous yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. 6.22, faculty conversion to Canvas one-time stipends. I have a motion from Trustee Jay, a second from Trustee Wright. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. 6 trustee yes vote, 1 trustee no, and a student advisory yes vote. 6.23, classified personnel action items. No changes. A motion from Trustee Wright, a second from Trustee Jay. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote and a student advisory yes vote. Next we have 6.24, non-bargaining unit personnel action regular items. No changes. A motion from Trustee Jay, a second from Trustee Witt. Seeing no request to speak, we'll vote on the item. Unanimous trustee yes vote, 1 student advisory yes vote. On to reports. 7.1, Saddleback College and Irvine Valley College speakers. Any comments there? Nope. 7.2, staff response to public comments. There are none. 7.3, facility plan status report, where Terry can look up her nightmares. 7.4, quarterly investment report. 7.5, basic aid report. 7.6, OPEB trust fund report. 7.7, pension stabilization trust fund report. And on to reports from administration and governments. We outlasted the faculty senates and the faculty association.
How about that for endurance?
Not Scott Green. We can't outlast Scott Green. Vice Chancellor of Technology and Learning Services. Vice Chancellor of Human Resources.
No report.
Vice Chancellor of Business Services.
Well, I was just going to thank Kirk Meyer for inviting me to the Faculty Association luncheon, but he's gone, so no report.
I guess it's on the record. All right. Irvine Valley College Classified Senate.
Yes, I'd just like to thank Chancellor Burke for attending our general meeting Flex Week at IVC. It was greatly appreciated to have her there. And thank you to Glenn Rockmore for hosting our first meeting for Flex Week. Also, our classified Senate is looking forward to a great year, and we're looking forward to putting together some learning lunches and professional development here shortly. We're also working with the Institute for Evidence-Based Change under the Guided Pathways in the State Chancellor's Office for the Caring Campus. So we're going to be doing a kickoff meeting with them on September 6th and then some workshops following. So,
great. Next we have Saddleback College Classified Senate.
Good evening, trustees and Chancellor Burke. Just a couple things to report. First of all, we finalized our professional development opportunities that we had last year. We were able to provide 54 staff members with different professional development opportunities, ranging anywhere from athletic equipment conferences to Workday Rising conferences. We were also able to provide professional development opportunities through Classified Day to another 127 staff members. So we did overall pretty good job of providing professional development to our staff. And the last thing to report is that September 13th is going to be our classified luncheon. That'll be offered at Saddleback College to all classified staff and anybody else that would like to come. It'll be in the SSC 212 from 11:30 till 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you. CSEA.
In light of not being out last, and in the interest of time, no report.
Thank you. So we are adjourned at 9:36.
Dude, that was one of the funniest. That was